Don't be blinded by just the stars that are standing out at the time. Because I was one of those guys. I was a bit of a rough diamond, educating the players on the importance of toughness in the game. You can't win a competition if you're not tough. Players can display that intent when they're confident in what they're doing. If they're really clear, they're confident, they've got the techniques, they know what they're doing, then that allows them to be more aggressive. Having an interest outside of footy makes you a better footy player. That I know that's a fact. I've never had a cup of coffee in my life, but if you had a coffee group, a coffee catch-up, you could replace the word coffee with relationship.
Welcome to Coaching Culture, the podcast about cultivating culture and leadership. I'm Ben Herring, and I've been loving this side of the game for bloody ages. Today's guest is Nathan Gray. He has 93 games for the Waratahs. He is Wallaby number 745 with 35 games for Australia, including a winning World Cup in 1999. He made a fierce reputation on the defensive side of the game. And when he became a coach, he was a D coach for the Rebels, the winning 2014 Waratahs, and ultimately Australian defensive coach. Along the way, he's also been head coach of the Australian under-20s and a variety of teams across Japan. These days, Nathan is the newly appointed Director of Rugby of the Manly Marlins Club. And he is the founder of the ingenious tackle tool Safe D Tracker, which we will talk about later on in the show. Nathan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, mate. Honoured to be here. Great podcast. Love what you're doing. Learning a lot from it as well. And thanks for having me along.
What a pleasure, mate. So you know the drill. We'll start with this question. How do you define culture?
Mate, for me, culture is sort of an observable set of behaviours and actions that, define in an environment how things are done there. Like they're things that culture is a thing that you see. Sometimes it's covert, it's overt. There's things that go on in the background, but it's certainly you get a feel for a place of how things are done in that environment, and that would be a culture for me, like defining a culture.
When you say observable, what sort of things would you be seeing?
Yeah, they're simple things with a coach's hat on. Simple things like, in a gym, the players, respecting the strength and conditioning coach, doing their reps, helping each other out, putting their weights away. Then you might be in a dining room where, guys are actively cleaning up after themselves. Guys are looking out for each other. And then that's off field. And then on field, on the training field, I'd see a strong culture, in terms of behaviours, the way the guys train, the way they keep themselves accountable, how diligent they are with listening to the coaches, listening to each other. There's a myriad of things that go into it, but some of those things, when you're looking for it, you can see it, but there's a lot of things that you can't as well.
Do you think there's a big difference between on-field versus off-field cultures? Are they different, or are they one of the same thing?
I think definitely that's a blend. There's going to be a blend across both on and off the field. It's just how that culture is displayed would be a little bit different from a team environment on the field, in review meetings and things like that. But then also the players outside of it doing their video work, being proactive with coffee groups. Really doing the things that they need to do to become a better team and better individual as well, like their own individual skill work, things like that. They're all examples that go into that big culture picture.
I love it, mate, the amount of coaches actually talk about the word coffee when it comes to culture, like around that coffee chat, that coffee. It comes up a lot. Well, like, what do you reckon about that? Why is having a coffee with someone or a group of people?
It's hard for me. I've never had a cup of coffee in my life, but I talk about meeting guys for coffee and catching up. It's just all about building relationships. I suppose if you had a coffee group, a coffee catch up, you could replace the word coffee with relationship, building understanding between people, just spending time with each other. And it might be, obviously if you're having a coffee, it's off the field or around the training environment. And it's a good opportunity to communicate, to sit down, communicate, connect. And that often involves coffee. It's something that everyone loves and has an opinion about. And
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually interesting, is it, that you could substitute the word having a coffee for building understanding. I reckon
Yeah.
that's a lovely phrase.
Yeah, like I say, you want to catch up for a hot chocolate, or you want to catch up for a cup of tea, and people look at me like I'm weird, which is actually what I'm doing. But I'm not actually having a coffee because I don't like the shit. But so I just stay with coffee and it works.
Well, I certainly like the coffee because I'm having a coffee anyway, and I love coffee. So, mate, I just invite someone in for that aspect. I think it's great. Yeah. And generally speaking, most people in the world do enjoy a coffee, right? You must be one of the minority.
Oh, I enjoy what goes with the coffee. Yeah, like I enjoy that more than the actual consuming the beverage. I love chatting down, sitting down, getting to know people better, getting to know what their background is, what they're about, and yeah, it's I'll have a cup of tea. I don't mind a cup of tea, mate.
Yeah.
Or a weak hot chocolate, which is even worse. And people look at me, it's like, fucking what?
A weak hot chocolate. Like
I heard someone order a skinny hot chocolate the other day, and I was like, come on, mate. What are you doing? But nah.
Mate, I love that. And I think that's the important bit when you're talking about this, isn't it? Is you got to enjoy what goes with the coffee or with the sit down. It's that what you talked about, those 3 C's, that the coffee, the communication, the connection. That's what goes with it, isn't it? And those are the bits which, build the understanding and relationship factor.
Very much so. And you learn things that you're probably not fishing for, or just organically things come out. You might learn something about a guy who's had a problem with a skill that he's been trying to learn for ages, or something off the field that he's been wanting to get off his chest or her chest. And, just creating that little opportunity to be able to do that is really good. And that goes into the culture of a place where, players feel comfortable to verbalize what they're thinking. It might be against what you think from a coaching perspective, but they're happy and they're in an environment they're comfortable to be able to have those conversations. And it takes time to build those connections.
I think it's also just a nice one just in life, right? Like probably everybody, your partner, your kids, having that little sit down over whatever. That could be a hot chocolate or an ice cream, Nathan, with the kids, just to check in, build a bit of understanding of how they're going through all the phases of life. It's not limited to the rugby setting, is it?
Oh, no way. It's great. It's using those times or catch ups to connect and communicate are things that I like doing with my kids, certainly.
Yeah, well, mate, we've got in this habit of ice cream connections, and I have a taker every time I say it. We do this thing called the Great Ice Cream Experiment, where we have to go to the shop and you have to have an ice cream that you haven't had before, and we have to sit outside and analyse the ice cream. And in that time, mate, I never get a no. Like, it's always a hell yeah.
Like it.
And all 4 come running out and go, yep, let's go. Yeah, ice cream experiment time. And then we sit down, we chew the fat about this new flavour, but then that's the time to check in on all those other things too. No,
yeah.
Taker.
Provides a little window to ask some questions, and also for them to feel really comfortable to, open up to you and let you know about a few things that are going on in their life that, you might raise your eyebrows about.
Yeah, there's a few of those, I reckon.
Absolutely,
sure. Mate. Through all the stages. Now, mate, you have actually had a massive career, mate. You've had some great coaches you've both played under and with. Now, have you got any examples of how some of your experiences, both as a player and as a coach coming through, that's shaped your coaching? Any standout moments that you could share with the audience about, like, gold nugget moments for you?
Yeah, a few around, when I first came onto the scene. Matt Williams was the coach of the Waratahs, and he was someone who, gave me an opportunity to play. So there's one thing that I've probably learned from him going into coaching was, sometimes you gotta back some people who might not be, a traditional person in a certain position or whatnot, or from a different area. Don't be blinded by just the stars that are standing out at the time. Because I was one of those guys. I was a bit of a rough diamond, and he saw some potential in me and gave me that opportunity. And, very, very grateful for that. And as a coach, I don't like writing people off. I like, oh yeah, well, he might have some, but there's some quality in there. And when you see those qualities, sometimes it's hard to bring them out of the player as well. So backing someone is something that I certainly learnt from Matty. At the Waratahs as well, at Bobby Dwyer, and Ewan McKenzie, at the Waratahs, they're very different coaches. Bob Dwyer, a great communicator, really open about the game and the way he wanted to play, very sort of macro around the game, where Ewan McKenzie was a bit more, very more micro, focusing on the little things going into it. So that's something that I certainly have taken away as a coach.
Which part of that, Nathan? Like, have you gone more micro or more macro in your own coaching?
I'm probably from the defensive side of things, a little bit more micro, where really breaking down something, whether it's attacking shape or a defensive shape or, tackle technique or whatnot, to try and give players real clarity on what you want from them. So that's something that I've certainly learned and taken away from those earlier learnings from someone like Link. Being really, really clear with the players as well around what you want, and then showing them examples of, okay, that's what it looks like, them doing it well, them not doing it well, little things like that, just to create that vision in their head of what it looks like being done really well. And then, okay, let's go out and repeat that.
Yeah. Do you find you have to flick between those micro and macro? Like, a lot of coaches love the micro, and like a defense coach, when you are you've got that micro element. But then when you're a head coach and the other roles and a director of rugby, you have to expand back out again. Is that a skill set in itself that you've had to work on?
Yeah, definitely. It's something that I'm, always working on. Being able to sort of step back and put yourself up on that sort of drone type view and have a look from a bigger perspective, and then it's like, okay, well, we're seeing that from a broader angle. How can we then, what areas do we need to zone in on? Because we can't zone in on everything. So in terms of it, like a game playing an opposition, like, we can't focus on everything. What are we going to focus on? What part of our game is going to nullify their strengths? What part of their game do we need to worry about? And then being a little bit more macro from that perspective is something that, I'm still learning and constantly trying to improve. But I probably, Rod McQueen was someone who was very, very good at that. He had a really good big picture, and then he had really good assistants around him that helped him sort of build that picture. And that's something definitely that I learned as a coach. Having your assistants and making sure you're really clear with them, but also leaning on them a lot. They're the guys who are sometimes or most of the times in that micro. So backing them, giving them support, really encouraging them to coach to their strengths. That's something I really tried to do as a head coach, is really encourage those assistants, and getting really good assistants makes it a lot easier.
Do you think being a head coach makes you a better assistant coach?
Yeah, I think you get an appreciation of what the head coach is going through, definitely.
Yes.
And also, and yeah, definitely agree. I think it does. And then it allows you to sort of see the game a bit differently as well, because you've got a lot more broader responsibility and whatnot. And sometimes that's a negative, and actually takes you away from coaching, which is sometimes it might be a part of the game that you really love, but you've got to entrust that with someone else to do. So that's that balance.
Well, I actually had a little thought there when you're talking about the micro and macro, and I was talking to a fella just the other day around the macro stuff when you're looking at the bigger picture. And I had this piece of advice, and it's probably a good one for all coaches, is when you're thinking about that bigger picture, is to write it down. Write down your bigger picture stuff, because when you write it down, you instantly take it from inside your head where it's sort of floating around, and you put it on paper. Now, when you put it on paper, your big picture stuff, you're actually watching it from a distance, and your emotions of things are taken out of it. It's just on paper. There's the big picture written down. And I just thought that was a lovely way to, when you're doing your macro stuff, to actually make sure you write those big picture stuff down, because often you keep the big picture just tucked away in the back of the head. Yeah, I want this to be a great environment, and this is how, but I'll just tuck that away. But when you write it down, you create that little bit of distance, like you're actually observing it. You're observing the words just like you're observing that bigger picture. I thought that was a lovely little piece, and I've been thinking about that lots lately, mate.
Yeah.
But there was a phrase there which you said, which I'm really keen to. I thought was really good when you're talking about your learnings, you said don't be blinded by the stars in your team as a coach. Not writing people off and seeing the inner diamond. Now, that's in every team. Is there any way, what sort of stuff are you looking for when you're talking about finding, that spark in someone? Is there little bits that you, like even yourself, what do they see in you to know that he's worth, pursuing?
Yeah, I just, and it sounds weird, but I think toughness these days is something that, you can get a feel for guys around their physicality and their willingness to throw their body into collisions and be really aggressive. And I think that's lacking a lot in probably Australian rugby at the moment. Looking at the being involved in the 20s programs for a while, we remember sitting around selection tables going, right, who are the toughest guys? Who are the guys here that we want to pick for a bit of mongrel, for a bit of dog? And it became slimmer and slimmer pickings. So looking for those guys that have that little bit of toughness is something that I look for a lot in players. And sometimes they might not be the most skillful, they might not be the fastest, they might not be the strongest, but they're the guys that you want to have in your team when you're rolling into a big competition or playing big games. So that's probably one aspect and it's not really a skill. it's an intent. And yeah, that's one thing that I really look for in players. And when you find that, you want to try and get those guys in your team, even if you've got to adjust for them. You might have a small back row, or you might have a small centre pairing, or whatnot. But you go, I want that guy in my team because he's a tough prick. And yeah, I don't know whether coaches saw some aspects of that in the way that I played or the way that I trained or whatnot. I don't know, but I really like to have guys in teams who are like that.
Can you coach it?
What's that?
Can you coach toughness?
I think you can contribute to it. But in terms of, for me, it's around educating the players on the importance of toughness in the game. Like we can't play or we can't win a competition if we don't have that as part of our DNA. Like you can't win a competition if you're not tough. Like it's pretty simple.
Mm. And is that physically and mentally tough?
Definitely both. Yeah, definitely both. And I think they do go hand in hand. But then you have to sometimes get that balance between, not being too physical and, and then giving away penalties and being stupid or whatnot. But then also, not getting too technical and really focusing everything on just playing a mental game. You've got to have that physicality. You've got to have it.
It's part of the game, isn't it? Like the fundamental.
That's a critical part of the game, yeah.
Yeah. Where'd you get yours from, you reckon?
What's that, sorry?
Where's yours come from? Because everyone I talk to about yourself says that was you in your game. Tough around that side. Where did it come from, do you reckon? What was the sparkers?
Oh, I honestly don't. I've thought about this a lot, like over the years, and I don't know. I got an older brother. He's 3 years older. I could never beat the fucking bastard at anything. Like anything. I couldn't beat him at anything. Like I've got these visions of, we played squash when we were growing up, and we'd stay at the squash court for like 5 hours, and I couldn't beat him. And he just kept beating me the whole time. He beat me at everything when I was a young kid. And I don't know whether I just developed that tenacity or that hate of losing or that fight. And, I don't know. And I think as I got a little bit, when I got older, I reflected back and I thought, well, I was always the sort of next guy off the rung. Like even going into professional footy, like I'm a centre. I was playing inside centre.
Yeah.
And I was in the era when there was a couple of shit centres called Daniel Herbert, Tim Horan, Jason Little, Pat Howard. And then I was coming through. So I was competing with those guys, and Timmy Horan, I love him to death, but we had some great battles, but he was always the godfather, and I was always, even I saw him at a lunch yesterday, and he still calls me the young bull, and I call him the old bull, and yeah, I don't know. There's just that tenacity and trying to fight to stick in. I don't know. Yeah.
Mate, I love that. I think there is probably some science done on the younger brothers or the younger siblings and families probably having the most scrap to them, right?
Yeah, I absolutely, and same with the girls as well. Like I've got three girls, and mate, it's interesting. They all develop very differently. But the women's game now, which is becoming bigger and bigger. You're seeing a lot of girls with that physicality, and they actually have a lot of intent. They have a lot of intent. So, but you got to give them the tools. They just throw their bodies around.
Now, talking about giving the tools, mate, this is where you've crafted your career essentially is on the defensive side of the game. You talked about earlier, you said it's not the sexy bit of the game, but it's the game that you've always loved. So I'd love to know this for the coaches listening is like, what is the culture of defense? What is it about it that you love, and what is the culture, not just of rugby, but of that part of the game, the culture of defense?
Yeah, I think it's something that defensive coaches, we love that part of the game because we know how important it is. But I think the culture of defense is around individual responsibility, number one. So your individual responsibility, but then also the importance of your teammates around you. To be effective as a defensive team, you need to have everyone connected. You need to be on the same page. You need to have that understanding of what you're doing. And, you can't just develop that. You can't just rock into a team and have that quickly. You have to develop that. So then you need to train it. You need to put players in situations where they need to connect, explain to them why it's important, how it's important, what they need to do. But really importantly is giving them the tools to be able to do it. Like you can't just say we want to have a really strong defensive culture in our team. We need to exhibit it. We need to go and do it. And this is what it looks like. And like all things that are done really, really well, teams that defend really well together, when you're watching them play, it looks quite easy. But the detail in that and the consistency of the players to be able to deliver that week in, week out over a long competition is very, very hard. So I don't know whether I answered your question there, but
No,
I'd
you did.
say, the culture would be the individual and the collective having them together and then being able to execute it.
Is there a mindset for defense which is different to, say, the attack?
No, I think you're always trying to, with attack, you're trying to capitalize on poor defense, and in defense, you're trying to shut down good attack. So you're trying to stop something from happening. So having a really good, clear picture of how you want to do that is critical.
I guess there is a balance between that technical side and the emotional piece of it, because it is a bit of an emotional part, isn't it? Defense, like you've got to have a bit of intensity and intent, as you talked about earlier. You've got to have it. And how do you coach intent?
Yeah, I think players can display that intent when they're confident in what they're doing. If they're really clear, they're confident, they've got the techniques, they know what they're doing, then that allows them to be more aggressive and or be smarter with their decision making. Knowing what you're doing to be able to execute it allows you to do it better. And if you can instill that in your players, I like to use the situation where, and its coaching philosophy is different, whether it's, on defense, whether it's system or whether it's individual. Like, do you focus on your system, but then you don't focus as much on your individual tackle techniques, or do you focus on your individual techniques, and then you bring your system and bring that in? Like, that's the yin and the yang. You need them both together, but what comes first? Would you rather a really good individual tackling team across the field, or a really good system but you guys are missing one-on-ones all the time and you're wondering why you're leaking points. Like, what do you need to work on? Do you need to work on your system, or do you need to work on your one-on-one stuff? And that's the yin and yang.
How do you get there? How do you know that? Like, a lot of coaches would be looking, like, how do you know when someone misses a tackle, whether you go, that's just a missed tackle by that individual, we'll just work on that individual this week to make sure that gets better, versus that guy missed a tackle, but the real reason he missed it is because of everyone was doing the wrong thing. How do you
Exactly,
make that assessment? Is there an
that
art to that?
just comes into your review. And knowing, just coaching over at Suntory last season, all our tries scored against us. I did an analysis of was it system based or was it individual based. So the way that I gauged that was, if it was a system error, say off the back of a line out, they bounce around and you're defending halfback, he's in perfect position. He's where he's supposed to be. He falls off the tackle. The guy goes through, then he makes an inside pass and he scores. Like, that's an individual error. That's not a system error. Whereas, in the same scenario, if the guy the defending halfback at the back had a shot off and gone really wide, really early, trying to take that second set of hands, it's like, well, mate, why are you doing that? And it's like, well, that's a system error because he's supposed to be checking that first guy off the back. So breaking up, and I broke it down, and it ended up being exactly half and half. It was unbelievable. Half were system errors and half were individual missed tackle errors. So it just highlighted to me the importance of make sure you're working on both.
What's the ideal there? What would you like? No system errors?
I would rather have no missed tackles.
Yeah.
So I reckon, your system, you can work on your system, but you can't just do one and miss out on the other. You got to work on both. Knowing where to be is important, but knowing what to do when you're there, you need to have both.
Yes.
And I think if your system is good and everyone has an understanding, then you can go, okay, you're just missing tackles here, mate. What can we do to do that? We can either help you get better at your tackle, or we'll shift the system and we'll piss you off and we'll put someone else into that position who can do that. And teams do that all over the world, depending on their backfield, the size of their players and whatnot. So, and that's an exciting part of the game as well.
Yeah. When do you make that call? Like, because that's obviously a slap in the face of some players. Go, right, you're not getting better there. We're going to move you out of the front line D and we're going to chuck you way over there where you don't have to make many tackles. How and when do you make those conversations?
Yeah, it's all in the cell, mate. It's all in the cell. No, I just find you explain it to the player how this is going to value the team and how it's going to help the team out. And all players are, when they realise that if you're doing something to help to the benefit of the team, then they're going to be on board. They still might be a bit shitty that you're taking them out of a frontline defense or whatnot, but deep down they probably know that guy's a bigger body, a better defender. He's going to do a job there, and then the player that you might be moving, his skill set's going to be utilised somewhere else. So.
Yeah, I've loved listening to some of those conversations where you have to say, look, we're moving you way out here just so we want to conserve your energy, so when it's time to get the ball back, you're fresh and ready to go and you can do what you're good at.
Part of it's true, mate.
Part of it's true. Part of it's
you're just a shit defender and you got to move.
I've been also with a lot of number 10s that actually go, you say no more, I'm there. I don't want to make these tackles.
Yeah, and it does make sense. You're saving those guys for the skill set that they're bloody good at. Organising and capitalising on opportunities. So if they're fresh and they're in a position to be able to do that, then that's only smart footy coaching, I think.
How do you make someone enjoy tackling? Or because you get a lot of players that don't like it. How as the defence coach do you get the sell to make people love it or want to do it?
Yeah, exactly. It's in the cell. Like, I love starting my defense presentations with like a massive big love heart. And it's like, I actually love this part of the game. And you look around the room and you see guys looking at you like you genuinely have three heads. Or, you might, it's like, defense is a beautiful thing. All people, like all men, most men like different types of women. Like
Yeah.
defense is different. There's different types of tackles. Like I look at it like that. I absolutely like. I love it. And with a player who might not, you make someone a good tackler. It's like help them fall in love with that part of the game. There might be something that they've done in the past that they've might be injured, or with poor technique they've found themselves getting a repetitive head knocks or injuries, or so giving them the tools to be able to fix what's holding them back from having that confidence. It might be a system thing. It might be something where they're just not confident. They might have a niggling injury, like a bad AC on the left shoulder, so they're always trying to tackle with their right. So trying to figure out what's inhibiting them from enjoying that part of the game, and then just passing on that knowledge and that love and hoping that they pick that up and get better at it.
Yeah, that's through those little coffees, isn't it? That understanding you're trying to pick up.
Yeah, and also it's also how they can benefit their team with their tackling. Like that is one huge thing. Like I remember Bernard Foley, everyone, sort of that sort of 2015 World Cup period where, there was Pocock. We had Pocock, Hoops, back rowers, getting lots of turnovers. Everyone's going, oh my God, these guys are so good over the ball. But when you go back and you have a look, for those guys to get onto the ball carrier needs to be on the ground. And who's made those low tackles to create those opportunities for those guys? Matt Tamua, Bernard Foley, like guys who really good low tacklers, but we highlighted the benefit of you do that, you create those opportunities for those guys to get on the ball. Like, and then in review meetings, reward that behavior rather than the guy getting the turnover.
The behaviors you want to see. Yeah. That's right. And because it would be easy just to focus on those jacklers, right? But this is the sell of it, isn't it? That everyone's got to roll.
Oh, all good jacklers, all the guys around the world who are excellent at getting over the ball, every time they get that opportunity to do it, just have a look. Who's made that low tackle to create that opportunity for that guy to get onto the ball? And those are the guys that I'd be rewarding.
Love it. Mate, do you think your passion as a D coach rubs off and is important for coaches when you're coaching this side of the game? Because it's an emotive piece sometimes.
Yep.
Do you need to be everything that you want them to be first?
Yeah, you definitely need to pass on how much you love it. Like, and that's as a D coach, being like that all the time can be hard. But I think like a lot of things in life, if if it's bullshit, the players will see through it. But I don't think, I'd like to think that the guys that I've coached, they know how much I love it and how much I value it and how much I value them contributing to the team's performance through this part of the game.
Yeah. I love that you talk about it can be smelt out if it's not you. If you're shouting and raving and it's not you, that's like coaching, faux pas city, isn't it?
Yeah, and sometimes it's just knowing when to dial it up and when to dial it down and whatnot. So that's that's all part of it.
Yeah. Now, mate, you've coached a little bit on the pathway system. What do you think the physical like of the game? Like you loved it yourself. What do you think it's given to you over time? And what do you think gives young players? What is the benefit of like getting hurt? When no one wants to get hurt, but it's an inevitability of the game. What's the benefit, do you reckon, around the contact nature of the game, the physical nature of the game, in terms of values that you get from it?
Oh, look, resilience and being able to bounce back from setbacks is, it's a life skill, really. And the physical side of rugby, you wake up sore, you got bumps and bruises, but you got to get up and carry on. You got to keep going. You got to find a way to push through some things. You have to listen to your body as well. Like that's something that's really important with, I suppose, with head knocks and whatnot. The game's become very good at making sure we're looking after ourselves from that perspective and the players. But rugby is a physical sport, and the contact is a beautiful part of it. So I think as a player and as a young kid growing up, seeing and coaching young kids, they get a lot of confidence in their life through playing footy. I know it's a bit of a long bow to draw, but I definitely feel as though they do, because they get used to having to push themselves, having to deal with injuries, setbacks, not always getting what you want, patience, resilience, determination, like the list goes on and on,
Doesn't
around
it?
the benefits that come from playing rugby.
And probably like different other sports too, you get humbled a bit more in rugby because there's always someone bigger, faster, stronger that you're always going to miss the tackles. You're never going to have a complete 100% in your career.
Yeah.
And so you
And
always have those little humblings, right? Which is good for that emotional steadiness.
there's nothing better than seeing a young kid who's been killing it playing and he's doing this and whatnot, and he gets sat on his ass or he gets absolutely smoked in a tackle. And how they deal with that is a really good life lesson as well. Like being able to, as you said, being able to deal with being humbled, and then responding. Like some young people and even some players at the highest level, they can't handle it when things aren't going their way. So it's good that, from a pathways perspective, that boys and girls coming through their development in the game, understand that. And
Yeah.
and sometimes you got to go at the end of the day when you get your ass handed to you, being able to say, we just weren't good enough today, guys. Like
Mm.
no blaming the ref or the other team or the other team that had this player come over and all the bullshit that you hear. And you'd hear this from the school's perspective. It's like, mate, sometimes we just weren't good enough, and that's fine. We'll roll the sleeves up next week and see how we go, and
Yeah.
we'll back ourselves.
I think it's absolute for all coaches. If the first comment you make after a game has anything to do with the referee, then you're scapegoating from the outset, and the referee should be the last comment you talk about. It's so easy to say we lost the game because the referee or the referee was terrible, but for me, that is just take stock. I know the emotions there because you might have lost, and there might have been one or two calls, but
Yeah,
yeah,
mate, it's
you need
probably
to own it
parents.
yourself.
Parents are probably the biggest people who need to bloody work on that as well, mate. Because the conversations in the cars home, a lot of the times I don't know whether we weren't good enough today. We got beat. There's always anyway. That's a whole nother podcast.
That's a whole nother page. That's a very good point, though, mate. As coaches, though, we do have a point to do the same thing. The way you steer losses post game, the way you frame it is the way that is generally uptaken. So if we're framing it, the first thing in is team, the referee was terrible, rah, 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 that is the sentiment. It's a blame culture. Whereas you own it yourself, you take full responsibility as a team, as a collective. That's got to be the sentiment coaches put in. And that's always a process rather than sort of blame culture, which I think rugby's really good at on the whole.
Yeah, agree.
Mate, now you talked about like that little thing. What about the red head, blue head side of it? Because it's a physical thing, this defense, and go from having to have like that red blooded, like we've got to make a tackle here. This big person's running at me. I've got to make this. So you go from that sort of aggressive head, but at the same time, when you're talking about systems, you got to have that little bit of a what we call a bluer head, that control, that thinking ability to go. Actually, I'm supposed to be over here. How do you coach that side of things in the defense? Because it's a tough thing because it's a whole different part of the game we're coaching there, isn't it? The red versus blue side of the head.
Yeah, very much so. And the really good players are the ones who can flick that switch and be really calm, but then when they need to, they can be super aggressive for a short period of time and then flick back into that blue. And I think how you coach that is you can do a little bit of scenarioing with players around, being able to think clearly and act aggressively is something that is that you can do by giving them little decision-making drills with a collision on the back end of it where, they need to be nice and aggressive. But they also need to think about what they're doing. Focusing on second action is a big thing as well from a defense perspective. Being in that red aggressive moment, you make a tackle. It's like, okay, what's the next thing you're going to do after that? Are you going to stay in that red angry tackle moment and just not think about what your next action is, whether it's back to your feet, going through on a boss, or you're rolling away, getting out of there, or even back to your feet and getting onto the ball. So you need to be calm and clear with your decision making after being super aggressive in a tackle. So, just educating players on that and then putting them in scenarios to be able to do that is a good way to get them flicking between that red and the blue where, I need you aggressive, but I need you smart. So that's something that, we can't, as a coach telling a team, we can't just be a super aggressive team. We've got to be a smart team. And what a smart team is a team that can stay in the blue and then drop into the red when they need to, whether it's a collision and whether it's a clean out, a tackle, defensive clean out, attacking clean out. We need to be able to work smartly in those zones. Does that make sense?
Mate, I love it. Think clearly, but act aggressively. I love this phrase, we need you aggressive, but we need you smart. And I love what you just said about whenever you do something like a tackle or something aggressive, you add to it a little bit of something which is thinking. So like you make an aggressive tackle and say a tackle drill, and then you say, get up and do the next thing. And that could be A, B, or C. And that'll depend on how many fingers I'm holding up or what color cone I'm holding up or what you're seeing in front of you. That's a lovely little coaching aspect as to,
and the same in attack. What happens a lot is guys might throw a pass or a little tip ball and they'll put a guy through a hole. And then they stand around and admire their work and just go, oh, how good was that? It's like, mate, what's your next action? Like, get on your bike and support that guy so you can get the ball back and score. Like, having guys focus on their next thing after they've done something, and it works both sides, yeah? If you miss a tackle, like, don't bury yourself in it, mate. Just or lie on the ground rolling around like you're injured. If you miss a tackle, get the fuck up and get in the D line and then contribute again. Like, don't wait. It's got to be, and that's going from red to blue and thinking. You got to think quick.
I love that. It's probably the reverse in attack, isn't it? Because a lot of the tech stuff in today's game is a lot about all these shapes and things, and you got to be thinking about, do I throw it here or here or here? And then you got to flick to, right, I've thrown it to there. Now I've got to clean a ruck, which is a red-headed activity. Correct. So you're almost doing the opposite, whereas defense, you're probably making the tackle, which is, you're in your red, you've got to be there. But then the next job is to get back and get in the right position and whatnot, which is a thinking process.
Sure.
I love this, mate. This for me is another awesome aspect of the game. And one of the big values is it's teaching this stuff to players. I certainly learned this stuff myself as well. You're constantly flicking your head between different spaces of being able to adjust quickly to what's happening in front of you, like able to think as well as, go right to the red head. And it's an important skill for life. Like, you're always going to have these things in life, right? Like, your boss is coming at you around something and you probably need to think about your response before you just act in the red head.
Yeah, absolutely.
and maybe that comes to do it. Now, what about you, mate, with your transition to coaching? What are your thoughts, mate? A lot of coaches listen to this. It is a transient lifestyle, and you're certainly the example of that, having gone all over the show, Japan and multiple clubs and things like that. How has it been? Like, how do you find stability and purpose when you're moving around, different countries, different regions, different teams, different levels? How is that as a coach? What have you picked up from that side of things?
Yeah, I suppose one thing I've tried to be is consistent with the way that I want to coach the game as well. To try and be consistent around, what I believe in and how I want to coach it, but also that learning aspect as well. Like, you're learning everywhere you go, trying to pick up different things, different ways of doing things. It might be different to the way you do it, but that doesn't mean it's right or wrong. So that's something, like continually learning in different environments, jumping around. From a coaching perspective, it's difficult on your family life with your kids. There's a number of guys who struggle with that. I'm one of those as well, who's been through a lot of struggle with that. But that's part of the coaching, I suppose, and how people manage that. So that's one thing as well. But staying really passionate and sticking to what I love about the game and the values of the game is one constant that I find is really amazing. And the people around the game as well that you get to meet in different cultures, different countries, different age groups. The love of the game and the joy that the game brings so many different people is something that really bolted me onto coaching when I first started, because I didn't want to coach. I was like, nah, I'm going to get out of this. I did a marketing degree and a master's in marketing, and I was going to go into advertising, and then I started coaching, and I genuinely loved the ability and what happened when you can pass some information on to players. You see them get better, you see them get more confident, and then that flows both on and off the field. So that intoxicating drug is something that, as a coach, has been a real constant through my coaching career. But there's certainly been some ups and downs, mate. Like, it's not easy, as you know, as everyone knows, all coaches know. And there's things that there's collateral damage as well, which is, can be hard for everyone. But that's part of it, mate. I love the game and love contributing to it.
Yeah, it seems that phrase, I know you've said it a lot, that it's an intoxicating drug. That's very true for a lot of coaches, isn't it? There's something in this professional art or craft of coaching which is a little bit drug-like, right?
Yeah, it is. Like, it's like, you certainly don't do it for the money. But it's got to be something that you really enjoy and you believe in, and whatnot. It's yeah, it's hard sometimes, and but it's also brings you so much joy, and in lots of different ways, from winning trophies to watching some kid walk up to his parents after a game and just really, really enjoying the moment of a win, or even a loss. Sometimes you see character traits of people jump out in different times and whatnot, and that's really, really special as a coach, to sit back and watch those things and go, I've had a bit of input into what's going on here, and I'm really proud of that.
Yeah, I actually read a quote of you that you encourage the off-field growth, and particularly when you're working with some of the pathway stuff. And you mentioned things like cooking and recovery and those sort of things, and the importance for players to learn those type of things. Like, is that
Oh,
still something you think is massive?
massively, yeah, absolutely. Having life skills. I think a lot of players now, they come out of school and they want to jump straight into a professional career, and from a rugby perspective, and a lot of the time stuff's been done for them, and their hands been held a little bit, and then that can continue into that professional era. But making sure they're getting those life skills, and looking to educate themselves in whatever form works for them. But having an interest outside of footy makes you a better footy player. That I know that's a fact. And that's a hard sell to a 18 to 20-year-old kid who just wants to do footy.
Yep.
And you're like, mate, actually have a break from it, like get away from it a little bit, and then that's going to actually make you a better player. Or, you like architecture, you want to study architecture, go and do it, and footy will work around it, no dramas, and mate, go and do that, because that'll make you a better footy player.
Yeah, there's a lot of great examples of that, isn't there? About, like, it's same as the gym analogy. If you're constantly in the gym, where the real value comes is sometimes if you have that break and you let your muscles recover, and you come back and you're fresher, faster, bigger. It's like that. You
Definitely.
can't just keep
Yeah.
tearing them, which is tough, mate, in today, because some of the workload, like the specificity that's happening in all sports, is encouraging people to just go pick one early and just commit to it. Where, are you a believer that you got to mix it up a little bit?
100%. You have to mix it up. Yeah, I see it a lot around here where we live, with young kids who are just specializing at 10, 12 years of age. It's like, all you can do is just encourage them to try lots of different sports, and mind you, some of the sports have a bit of a say here as well, because they try and keep them, like, creating these summer competitions and then winter late night competitions, and like they try and keep the kids playing the one sport the whole year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would encourage, the science around, mixing the sports up, and then letting the kids sort of land where they land on what they really love and what they really want to do. Sometimes that's against what parents think or what, the public might think, but You want the kids to fall in love with something, and then fuel that fire once they've told you, hey, I really like this, mum and dad, or whatnot. I'm in, and it's like, okay, well, let's go.
Love it, mate. Love it. Now, one aspect which I think fits to this nicely, that you're not just a one-trick pony, mate, is you've come up with this little tackling tool, which I've used, and we use it here. I think it's outstanding, and just the fact that you've not only teach this stuff, but you actually make a physical product to help the tackle, because so important is the safety tracker. Mate, how did you get into it, mate? How did you decide, right, I'm going to make something which is going to make tackling better for everyone?
Yeah, it was bizarre because it started when I was coaching with the Wallabies and talking about tracking and with guys and repeatedly going through reviews and seeing where we were missing our tackles and whatnot. And I thought, well, how can I better explain tracking to the players that I was coaching? Because I didn't feel as though they were getting it as clearly as what I was trying to say. So I thought to myself, well, why don't I just attach the defender to the attacker, so there's a real clear line of sight of where the defender needs to go to put themselves in a good position to make the tackle. So I just started doing it, connecting them with an old, just a line.
Was it an old washing line, was it, to start with?
Mate, it was the retractable washing lines that you could hook up in your backyard, and I went and tied it around Samu Karevi or bloody Ned Hannigan and Adam Ashley Cooper and whatnot, and then I'd hold the other end, and I'm like, right, I want you to go towards the ball carrier and get up towards me to make that tackle. And these guys are like, far out. That makes a lot of sense, Crazy. Like, that's really clear. And I was thinking to myself, if these guys at this level are getting value in something like this, I need to do something with this. So it just developed from there. And I essentially, went in down the design path with a mate, and we've ended up come up with Safety Tracker, which is it's a training aid that allows defenders to put themselves in a really good, safe position to make a tackle. Because I feel as though, tackling it's tracking and then it's hitting. So you need to have the two, but you can't, if you don't know where to go to make the tackle, it makes it really hard to make the tackle.
Mm.
So having that tracking aspect is what the Safety Tracker does. And then it's just grown from there. And I've had like these light bulb moments with test players, light bulb moments with under eights, all the way through, boys and girls. And it's, I feel as though it's something that I'm really passionate about, and everyone in the world needs to do it. That's where Safety Tracker was born, mate.
Mate, I love that. And it fits really well with what you're talking about before. Earlier you said the more clarity, the more technique, the more tools you have, allows players to be more confident in what they're doing. And confidence is what you want for the defense, especially the individual side. And when you've got a tool like this, which is actually what I love when I use it, mate, is like I said, there's a visual. Like normally when you say track someone, it's a little bit of guesswork. But when you've got like a physical line which connects me to you, and you say, go up the line. I think that's the phrase you use when
get up the line.
Get up the line. And you know exactly where you're going. You have absolute confidence. It's so simple. And I reckon that's part of what I loved about your philosophy of it, is you're creating the clarity. You're ironclad on the clarity, because there's the physical line. And when you move, that's the direction you go, and you just let it pull you towards where you have to go. And I think, mate, these little things are just awesome for getting this part of the game nailed down better.
Absolutely. And it ties into the, in terms of we're seeing a lot of head collisions and whatnot, and a lot of those happen from over tracking or getting yourself in a poor position to actually execute the tackle. So, there is an aspect of that helps give players confidence of where they've got to go. And, with an little under sixes clinic that I did, these kids were pulling the cord out and they're stuffing around. But at the end of the day, they had a real basic understanding of, okay, if you're going to make a tackle in rugby, you need to go towards that ball carrier in a straight line, and that's where you've got to go to then make the tackle. For me, that's awesome, because a lot of the collision side of things inhibits people from staying in the game. And man, if you're not confident, you're not sure about, and you're scared of the tackle, it's usually because you don't really know what to do. So this gives the players and coaches a really easy training aid to say, look, mate, this is what you got to do. This is where you got to go to make that tackle, and then you can execute the tackle. And if that keeps people in the game, allows players to get more confident when they're playing, so that they can add more value to their teams, then that's something from a legacy piece that if I can leave that with the game, then that's, mate, I'm pretty stoked with that.
Mate, what a statement, the legacy piece, mate. And it is a great tool, mate. And every club should have a set. So, mate, what I'll do is I'll leave all your details in the show notes, mate, so people can jump on, buy their local club a set, and it'll be superb value. Now, mate, with the last question of the day, we've come to that time, and I'd like to ask this one. As you listen to the show, you'll know this one. What is one belief that you hold about coaching that you reckon your peers would disagree with, or culture, in fact?
Yeah, I think from a coaching perspective, I think the balance between being really hard with players and really nurturing them is a difficult one. And I think early on in my coaching career, I was really hard with players. And I think that's shifted a little bit since I've gotten older, and coaching the person as well as coaching the player, getting that balance right is something that I've had to work on. And I'm leaning now more towards coaching the person than coaching the player.
What adjustments have you made there?
I think with my harshness around on-field stuff and review, I used to be pretty brutal with players, but I think over the years, seeing the benefits of shifting that focus and then having a bit more of a caring feel in the way that you deliver that is something that I've found I've had better traction with.
So you essentially take, a harsh, direct criticism and then mold into something which is a little bit softer on the edges, but still delivers the same thing.
Yeah, you want them to have that clear understanding, but it's not this like one way, that's the way you do it. It's just having an appreciation a little bit more around how they're looking at it and how they might feel in that situation, and then going, okay, what's going to be the best way for me to get through to this player? It might not be my way. It might be slightly different, and I've got to figure that out, not the player.
Mate, I love it. I actually reckon a number of coaches, the more experience you get, that becomes a repeating theme, isn't it? That you sort of learn that. Do you think it's actually because you get a little bit less stressed? There's less, as you get more experience, you understand the stresses on yourself better, and you're able to lighten and not pass it on as much?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, for sure. Like the result of things has shifted a lot. It's about the continual improvement of the player is paramount. Like it's, there might be ups and downs in results, but the continual improvement of the player and then the teams that you're coaching, your overall improvement over a period of time, that's the better indicator than, W's and L's. Very easy to say. Very easy to say as a coach.
Very easy. Nathan Gray, what a pleasure to have you on the show today, mate. That is time. But before you go, I'd just like to sum up my 3 big takeaways from you that I really got out of it myself today. Okay. So they are, number 1, your phrase you said at the start, don't be blinded by the stars as a coach. And I think it's a really cool one for coaches to remember that whilst the stars are your key players and they shine the brightest, there's a whole raft of players underneath. And it's important we don't write these off, because in there's always those little diamonds. And you talked about seeing things like toughness, not something which shines really brightly, but it's underlying and it's deeper. And the better you can see that and nurture that, you're actually going to uncover those diamonds in a great way. So not to just be sucked in by the shiny, bright stars, I think is a great coaching point. Number 2, I loved what you said. You need to be able to think clearly but act aggressively. We need you to be aggressive, but we also need you to be smart, you said. And the lovely focus point on an actionable thing to do is every time you do something which is aggressive, focus on the second action. What's next? The next job, and particularly around the defensive side of the game, is to get that happening automatically. You do something aggressive, do something that makes you think straight away. So you're flipping between that red head and then blue head and training that aspect. And I love the fact that you said you can train that. And number 3 is the phrase you said, the more clarity, technique and tools you have given your players allows them to be more confident in what they're doing. So I love that, mate. Sometimes we forget in this culture thing that we still need to give all the tools, the techniques and the clarity for players to be confident. So the advice to coaches is to keep educating, keep being inventive to make things clear. And I think what you've done with the safety tracker is a great example of making things clear as day about what you want, which in turn leads to higher confidence for players. Nathan Gray, what a pleasure, brother.
Thanks, mate. Really appreciate it. That's an awesome summary. You're obviously good at this. Mate, appreciate it. And, mate, all the best with everything. Look forward to seeing and running into you some more.